For everyone listening, before we dive too deep into it, I want to read them the actual post you sent out because it makes so much sense as we dive into it. And what was really cool is it sparked a big response. And that's why we're like, we got to jump on instantly, get this on a podcast and just talk through it all. But your post was, let's talk capital investment. Earthwork is a race to the bottom. Plain, simple fact. It takes hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to operate an earthwork business. I ask a simple question. Why do we keep undercutting ourselves with the expenses we experience? Why do we operate on rates less than other trades while we put in infrastructure, excavate around live water, sewer, and gas mains, and carry more risk than the trades around us? This is an industry problem, and I want to talk about it. Tag your people.
People are like, well, your business sucks. You need to market better. You need to provide better services. You need to A through Z.
Let me just use a specific example from Chris Lang. Because you didn't go to school, any goober can buy a skid steer and be an earth mover. The only barrier to entry in your trade is money.
And what you kind of come to find from this is the general public, and I don't know what these people that are commenting do for a profession. I don't know if they own a business in a different trade, if they're working for somebody. It just seems that the persona is excavation is easy. I can get in a skid steer and I can move a pile of dirt, so I'm an excavator. And that conversation, I will sit there and unload on somebody for hours about that. It's not as easy as you think. It's the same thing I tell the people that work with me. Running the machine is easy. Getting everything to the right grade, getting the pipe fit correctly, achieving compaction, handling their logistics, moving dirt once, not 4 times, all of these things, getting your trucking worked out so you can backhaul. There's so many things that go into that. So when people think it's like, oh, well, I rented an excavator and I dug a tree in for my yard one day, I can be an excavation business. That's a little tougher. And I will say part of that with a grain of salt, because a lot of those things were me when I started. I didn't know near what I know now. And there was a lot of learning and trial by error, but I definitely learned pretty quick that it wasn't just as easy as getting in a machine and moving some dirt with a skid steer. There was a lot more to that. That general consensus that dirt work's easy, I think it's a part of this conversation, because there are a lot of people that do just go buy a piece and then they slash their rates, and all of a sudden they're bidding commercial work and probably not having a very good time doing it because they didn't understand what they were getting into. But the consensus is excavation's easy, and I highly disagree with that.
So let's talk about commercial for this example. Do you think the bigger problem are these companies, like you mentioned, slashing their own prices, not knowing how to bid a commercial job that's eventually going to fail and probably put them out of business? Or is it the GC that looks at these low bids and accepts them and takes them on? Maybe they know what's going to happen. Like, where does the big problem come in?
So that's, I can weigh in on both, because in my mind initially, with face value of that question, it's about a 50-50 problem. But you get, people that come in, they don't, they've been digging a residential foundation. The bids are easy. It's like, oh, I'm just going to dig it. All the dirt can stay on site. The backfill's easy. They're not having to worry about import, export, all the stuff. There's a lot more to it in that. So I think that's just ignorance is bliss. And I was one of those guys. The first commercial job that I did, I certainly didn't understand my dirt quantities. And I think the only way I made it through was because I did so much of the work myself. But that's on the dirt contractor side. The GC side, I could go into much more of a spiel, but I'll try to keep it a little shorter. I think there's a lot of general contractors, and we work with some really good ones, but we worked with some that it's very clear that they don't understand the civil side even a little bit. And we've hopped on the Dirtbags University before, and I've showed our bids and the line items. Everything we do is very detailed. We've got our mobilization, and then within our civil scope, we've got our topsoil strip, whether that's to stockpile it or export it, our subgrade cut, all of our fabrics, all of our base, everything's very detailed, quantified down to fittings with water main line kind of deal. And then you get the other bid that's just do dirt work, one lump sum, $500,000. Yeah, exactly. And then those guys get selected, and I've had this conversation. It's one I'm forcing this conversation more and more. As soon as we get plans to a job, the question I always ask is, hey, do you have quantities? And the answer I always get is no. And so then it's get CAD files, do our own takeoff. And I went deeper with it, going, okay, so you don't have dirt quantities. You don't have quantities on anything. So how are you getting these bids apples to apples? And lately the response is that I've gotten is, oh, that's a pretty good point. And I say, exactly. So when you call us and you tell us that we're 30% north of the low bid, I can point you in a couple directions as to why. And if you don't have those quantities or they haven't acknowledged that that's what they need to move for Earth, you're kind of putting yourself in a bad situation too, because one of two things are going to happen. The contractor that was that low and missed all that stuff is going to show up and immediately want a change order.
Right.
Well, I didn't know I had to export the topsoil. I need more money. That's going to happen, which probably won't go in their favor. Going to end up in a legal matter. And the second thing that'll happen is the guys will realize they're not making any money on that project. They'll pull off, go somewhere they can make money, and then we end up in a legal matter again.